In the bustling spaceport city of Nova Heights, a young mechanic named Alex worked tirelessly in their tiny garage. Life wasn't glamorous, fixing old starships for credits barely kept food on the table, but it was honest work. Every day, Alex dreamed of something more, staring out at the endless expanse of stars through the cracked viewport above their workstation. One evening, as Alex tightened bolts on an aging freighter's engine, a strange figure entered the shop. Dressed in a weathered flight jacket and boots covered in stardust, the visitor carried an air of mystery. His name was Carter, and he had heard rumors about Alex's skill with engines. "Got a job for you," Carter said, leaning against the counter. "But it's not just any repair gig." Alex raised an eyebrow but didn't stop working. "I'm listening." Carter slid a battered datapad across the counter. On its screen was a digital manual titled Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Spaceflight Star Citizen 4.1 Tips and Tricks. It looked like some kind of instructional guide, though parts of it were highlighted and annotated heavily by hand. "This isn't just a book," Carter explained. "It's a map. A way into the unknown. You ever heard of the Elysium cluster?" Alex shook their head. They'd never been outside Nova Heights, let alone into deep space. "The cluster's off-limits," Carter continued. "Dangerous territory filled with pirates, anomalies, and secrets. Secrets worth dying, or killing, for. I need someone who can keep my ship running while we explore it." Alex hesitated. This wasn't just dangerous, it sounded insane. But there was something magnetic about the idea. For years, they'd tinkered with ships meant for others' adventures. Now, here was a chance to step into one themselves. "What makes you think I'm the right person?" Alex asked finally. Carter grinned. "Because you're good. And because if you weren't curious, you wouldn't still be holding that wrench instead of throwing me out." After a long pause, Alex nodded. "All right. I'm in." Little did they know, this decision would set them on a path far beyond anything they could have imagined, a journey that would test their courage, ingenuity, and humanity itself. As Alex packed their tools and prepared to leave everything familiar behind, they couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. Would they find glory among the stars? Or would the void consume them whole? The next morning, Alex stood at the docking bay where Carter's ship, the Iron Wren, was parked. It wasn't much to look at, a patched-up freighter with faded paint and mismatched panels, but it hummed with a quiet energy that suggested it had seen its fair share of battles. Alex ran their fingers along the hull, inspecting every dent and scratch. "Don't judge her by her looks," Carter said as he approached, tossing Alex a toolkit. "She's got heart." Alex smirked but didn't argue. They climbed aboard, taking in the cramped interior. The cockpit smelled faintly of burnt wiring and stale coffee, and the control panel blinked with warning lights. Clearly, this ship needed more than just a quick tune-up. "You weren't kidding when you said she needed work," Alex muttered, dropping their bag on the floor. Carter shrugged. "That's why I brought you. Fix her up while we prep for launch. We've got a long trip ahead." As Alex dove into repairs, they couldn't help but flip through the pages of the guide Carter had given them. It wasn't just technical advice about piloting or combat maneuvers, it read like someone's personal journal, filled with cryptic notes and sketches. One section caught Alex's eye, Elysium Cluster Anomaly Log. Beneath it were coordinates and diagrams of strange symbols etched onto asteroids. "What's this all about?" Alex asked, holding up the datapad. Carter glanced over his shoulder. "Ah, that's what we're after. Some call it treasure. Others say it's a weapon. Whatever it is, people have been trying to find it for decades. And you think this guide will lead us there?" "I know it will," Carter replied firmly. "Whoever wrote it got closer than anyone else. They left clues, but also warnings. You'll see soon enough." By nightfall, Alex had managed to stabilize the ship's engines and patch several critical systems. The iron wren groaned as it lifted off from Nova Heights, leaving behind the neon glow of the city below. As they broke through the atmosphere, Alex felt a lump rise in their throat. This was it, the moment they'd dreamed of yet never truly believed would happen. The first leg of their journey took them through the Orion Belt, a relatively safe stretch of space known for its stunning asteroid fields and occasional trader outposts. Alex spent most of their time either tinkering with the ship or poring over the guide, trying to decipher its secrets. Meanwhile, Carter kept watch from the cockpit, occasionally sharing stories of his past adventures. "You ever wonder why we do this?" Carter asked one evening as they floated near a massive asteroid glowing faintly with bioluminescent moss. "Do what?" Alex replied without looking up from the guide. "Leave everything behind. Risk our lives chasing shadows in the dark." Alex paused, considering the question. "Maybe because staying still feels worse." Carter chuckled softly. "Yeah. Maybe you're right." But not everything went smoothly. Midway through the belt, alarms blared as an unidentified vessel appeared on the radar. Its silhouette was jagged and menacing, a pirate raider. "Get to the turret." Carter barked, gripping the controls tightly. Heart pounding, Alex scrambled to the gunner's seat. The guide slipped from their hands and slid across the floor, forgotten for now. Pirates weren't part of the plan, but Alex quickly realized that survival required more than just fixing engines, it meant being ready for anything. The raider fired first, sending a volley of laser bolts streaking past the iron wren. Alex returned fire, their aim shaky but improving with each shot. Sparks flew inside the cabin as one bolt grazed the hull, and Carter cursed under his breath. "Hold steady," Alex shouted back, focusing intently on the targeting screen. Finally, a lucky shot hit the raider's engine, disabling it. The enemy ship drifted away, defeated but not destroyed. Both Alex and Carter let out sighs of relief. "Well done," Carter said, glancing back at Alex with newfound respect. "Looks like you're full of surprises." As they continued onward, Alex picked up the guide again, brushing dust off its cover. They were starting to understand why Carter had chosen them, not just for their mechanical skills, but for their determination to adapt and survive. But the deeper they ventured into uncharted territory, the clearer it became that danger lurked around every corner. And somewhere out there, hidden within the Elysium cluster, lay answers waiting to be uncovered, or perhaps dangers waiting to be unleashed. The iron wren sailed deeper into the void, leaving behind the scattered lights of civilization. The Orion Belt gave way to darker, quieter stretches of space, a vast emptiness punctuated only by distant stars and faint cosmic radiation. Alex found themselves staring out the viewport more often, marveling at how small they felt against the infinite expanse. But there was no time for reflection, every moment demanded focus. Carter had set a course for a waypoint marked in the guide as Echo Station, described only as an abandoned outpost near the edge of the Elysium cluster. According to the notes scrawled in the margins, it might hold supplies, or clues about what lay ahead. Either way, it was their next destination. As days turned into weeks, life aboard the ship settled into a rhythm. Carter handled navigation and kept watch for threats, while Alex maintained the ship's systems and studied the guide relentlessly. They began to notice patterns in the annotations, references to gravitational anomalies, unstable jump points, and strange energy signatures that seemed almost alive. One evening, as Carter napped in his bunk, Alex sat cross-legged on the floor of the cargo bay, surrounded by tools and loose pages torn from the guide. Their eyes scanned a section titled Star Citizen 4.1 Advanced Maneuvers, which included diagrams of complex flight paths through asteroid fields. At first glance, it looked like standard advice, but something about the angles and trajectories made Alex pause. "Hey, Carter," they called out, flipping through the pages. "Does this mean anything to you?" Carter shuffled into the room, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He glanced at the diagram and frowned. "That's not just a flight path, it's a code." "A code?" Alex echoed, leaning forward. Yeah. Pilots used to embed messages in their flight logs back in the day. If you follow these maneuvers exactly, they'd spell out coordinates or instructions. Someone must have been trying to leave breadcrumbs. Alex's mind raced. So we're supposed to fly like this when we get closer to Echo Station? Could be, Carter replied. But if we do, we'll need precision, and guts. Those kinds of moves can shred a ship if you're not careful. The conversation ended abruptly as the ship's sensors picked up something unusual, a faint distress signal emanating from nearby. The message was garbled, repeating fragments of words over and over: help, trapped, Elysium. That's weird, Alex said, frowning at the console. Who's still out here? Carter's expression hardened. Probably nothing good. Could be a trap. Despite the warning, curiosity got the better of them both. Adjusting the ship's course, they followed the signal to its source, a derelict mining vessel drifting silently among jagged rocks. Its hull was scorched and battered, evidence of some violent encounter long past. Let's suit up, Carter said, grabbing 2 oxygen tanks. If there's anything worth salvaging, now's the chance. Wearing bulky envirosuits, Alex and cargo stepped onto the eerie remains of the mining ship via a makeshift airlock. Inside, the corridors were dark and frigid, illuminated only by the flickering glow of emergency lights. Every step echoed eerily, and the smell of burnt metal filled the air. This place gives me the creeps, Alex muttered, clutching a flashlight tightly. Stay sharp, Carter warned. We don't know what happened here. They moved cautiously, searching for signs of survivors, or whatever had sent the distress call. In one of the crew quarters, they found a journal lying open on a desk. The last entry read: They came without warning. Ships unlike any I've seen before. Not human. Not natural. They took everything. All data wiped clean. Only managed to hide this log. If anyone finds it, stay away from Elysium. Whatever is there, it's watching. A chill ran down Alex's spine. What does that even mean? Not human? Before Carter could respond, a low rumble shook the ship. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the lights flickered violently. We need to go. Now, Carter said urgently. But as they turned to leave, the sound of movement echoed down the corridor, slow, deliberate footsteps accompanied by an otherworldly hum. Something was still on board. Alex gripped their tool belt nervously. You think it's, whatever did this? I don't want to stick around to find out, Carter replied grimly. They sprinted back toward the airlock, hearts pounding. Behind them, shadows shifted unnaturally, growing larger and darker with each passing second. Just as they reached the exit, a figure emerged from the gloom, not quite humanoid, its form shifting and shimmering like liquid metal. Without hesitation, Carter slammed the door shut and sealed it tight. Back aboard the Iron Wren, they powered up the engines and fled, leaving the derelict ship, and its mysterious occupant, behind. Once safely away, Alex slumped into a chair, trembling. What the hell was that? Carter didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with unease. Whatever it wasn't alone. And it knows we're coming. For the first time since leaving Nova Heights, doubt crept into Alex's mind. The thrill of adventure had been replaced by fear, not just for their own safety, but for what awaited them in the Elysium cluster. Yet, despite the danger, they couldn't turn back. The guide promised answers, and Alex was determined to uncover them. Little did they know, the true trials were only beginning. The Iron Wren limped toward Echo Station, its system strained from the encounter with the derelict mining ship. Alex worked tirelessly in the engine room, patching leaks and rerouting power to keep the vessel operational. The mysterious guide sat propped open on a nearby console, its pages fluttering faintly in the artificial gravity as if urging them onward. Carter, meanwhile, spent hours poring over star charts and recalibrating the ship's sensors. "We're close," he announced one evening, his voice tinged with both excitement and apprehension. "Echo Station should be within range by morning." Alex nodded but said nothing. They were still haunted by what they'd seen, or rather, what they couldn't fully explain, on that abandoned ship. The shifting, metallic figure lingered in their thoughts like a shadow refusing to dissipate. What had it been? A remnant of whatever force had attacked the miners? Or something else entirely? When dawn broke across the viewport, a simulated sunrise programmed into the ship's lighting system, they arrived at their destination. Echo Station hung in the void like a ghostly sentinel, its skeletal frame illuminated by the dim light of a distant sun. Once a thriving research outpost, it now resembled a tomb, its outer walls scarred by micrometeorite impacts and time itself. "This place gives me bad vibes," Alex muttered as they suited up for another extravehicular excursion. "You're not wrong," Carter replied, checking his oxygen levels. "But we didn't come this far to chicken out now." They docked cautiously, securing the iron wren to one of the station's decaying docking arms. As they stepped inside, the airlock hissed ominously, and the interior greeted them with oppressive silence. Dust coated every surface, and the faint hum of failing electronics echoed through empty corridors. "Spread out," Carter instructed. "Look for anything useful, logs, supplies, or clues about the anomaly." Alex wandered into what appeared to be a control room, its consoles dead except for a single blinking monitor. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was displaying fragments of a corrupted file. Lines of text scrolled erratically, occasionally forming coherent phrases. "Project Lazarus, containment breach, subject escaped." "What is this?" Alex whispered to themselves, snapping photos with their suit's camera. Suddenly, a loud clang reverberated through the station, followed by the unmistakable sound of movement deeper inside. Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "You hear that?" "Yeah," Alex replied, gripping a wrench tightly. "Not alone, are we?" They regrouped cautiously, weapons drawn, Carter with a plasma pistol, Alex armed with whatever tools they could carry. The noise led them to a massive sealed door labeled Containment Bay. A manual override panel beside it sparked weakly, hinting at residual power. "We shouldn't open this," Alex said instinctively, eyeing the ominous warning signs plastered around the frame. "We don't have a choice," Carter countered. "If there's something worth finding here, it's probably behind this door." After some fiddling with wires and circuits, Alex managed to bypass the lock. The heavy doors groaned open, revealing a cavernous chamber bathed in red emergency lighting. In the center stood a cylindrical containment pod, its glass cracked and leaking vapor. Inside, suspended in stasis, was a humanoid figure, but unlike any human Alex had ever seen. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal, eerily reminiscent of the entity they'd encountered earlier. "Oh no," Alex breathed, stepping back. "It's one of them." Before they could react, the creature stirred. With a deafening crack, the pod shattered, releasing the being into the room. It moved fluidly, its form rippling as though alive with energy. For a moment, it simply observed them, its featureless face tilting curiously. Then, without warning, it lunged. Carter fired his weapon, but the bolts passed harmlessly through the creature's body as though it existed partially out of phase with reality. Alex scrambled for cover, grabbing a fallen pipe and swinging wildly when the entity came too close. To their surprise, the makeshift weapon disrupted its form momentarily, causing it to recoil. "It doesn't like physical contact," Alex shouted, dodging another swipe. Carter caught on quickly. "Keep hitting it. We can drive it back." Working together, they managed to force the creature into retreating further into the station. Exhausted and shaken, they sealed the containment bay behind them, hoping the reinforced doors would hold. "Well," Carter panted, leaning against the wall. "That answers one question. Whatever these things are, they're tied to the Elysium cluster." And they're dangerous, Alex added grimly. Way more than I signed up for. Despite the chaos, they hadn't come away empty-handed. Among the debris in the control room, Alex discovered a data crystal containing logs detailing Project Lazarus, an attempt to harness alien technology for faster-than-light travel. The experiments had gone horribly wrong, resulting in the creation of the entities they'd encountered. They opened Pandora's box, Alex murmured, pocketing the crystal. And now we're walking straight into it. As they returned to the Iron Wren, the weight of their mission felt heavier than ever. The guide had promised adventure, but it hadn't mentioned horrors lurking in the dark. Still, turning back wasn't an option, not after coming so far. With Echo Station fading into the distance, they set a course for the heart of the Elysium cluster. Somewhere ahead lay the truth, and perhaps salvation. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, pursued by forces beyond comprehension. The real test was yet to come. The Iron Wren plunged deeper into the Elysium cluster, navigating through swirling nebulae and jagged asteroid fields. The guide had become more cryptic with each passing entry, its instructions now resembling riddles rather than straightforward advice. Yet Alex and Carter pressed on, driven by equal parts determination and desperation. As they approached the coordinates marked in the guide as Apex Point, the ship's sensors began picking up strange readings, pulsating energy waves that seemed to emanate from a massive structure looming ahead. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen, a colossal ring suspended in space, its surface etched with glowing symbols that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "What is that thing?" Alex asked, their voice barely above a whisper. Carter studied the readings intently. "No idea. But it matches the description in the guide. This has to be it, the source of everything." They docked cautiously at a nearby derelict station orbiting the ring. Clearly once a monitoring post, it was now abandoned, its halls echoing with the same eerie silence they'd encountered at Echo Station. Inside, they found remnants of scientific equipment and hastily scrawled notes detailing experiments conducted on the ring. One note stood out: the artifact reacts to sentient thought. Approach with caution. That explains why things keep going sideways, Carter muttered, pocketing the note. It's not just tech, it's alive. Alex nodded grimly. And it doesn't take kindly to intruders. After gathering what supplies they could salvage, they returned to the Iron Wren and prepared to approach the ring directly. As they drew closer, the ship's systems began malfunctioning, lights flickered, consoles sparked, and the engines sputtered unpredictably. "It's messing with us," Alex said, frantically working to stabilize the ship. "We can't stay here long." "Then we won't," Carter replied. "We go in, get answers, and get out. Fast." Using the maneuvers outlined in the guide's coded diagrams, Carter piloted the Iron Wren through a narrow gap in the ring's inner structure. For a moment, everything went still. Then, with a blinding flash of light, they were pulled inside. When the glare faded, they found themselves in an alien environment unlike any they'd imagined. The interior of the ring was vast, filled with floating platforms connected by streams of radiant energy. Above them, constellations shifted and danced, forming patterns that seemed to tell stories older than time itself. This isn't possible," Alex stammered, staring in awe. "It's beautiful," Carter admitted, though his tone carried an edge of unease. "But we're not here for sightseeing." Guided by the pulsing symbols on the walls, they landed on one of the platforms and stepped outside. The air hummed with latent power, and every step sent ripples across the ground, as if the surface itself were alive. At the center of the platform stood another containment pod, larger and more intricate than the one at Echo Station. Within it floated a being of pure light, its form constantly shifting between humanoid shapes and abstract designs. Around it, holographic projections displayed scenes of ancient civilizations rising and falling, wars waged over knowledge too dangerous to wield. "The origin point," Alex whispered, consulting the guide. "This is where it all started." Before they could process what they were seeing, the light being stirred. Its gaze, though it had no eyes, fixed on them with an intensity that made Alex's skin crawl. "You seek understanding," it said, its voice resonating not just in their ears but in their minds. "Yet you bring chaos." "We didn't mean to," Alex replied quickly, holding up their hands defensively. "We're just trying to survive." The being tilted its head, considering. "Survival often comes at great cost. Tell me, mortals, what would you sacrifice for answers?" Carter stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We'll do whatever it takes." The being paused, then extended a tendril of light toward the guide in Alex's hand. "This artifact holds fragments of my essence. Created by those who sought to control me, it has guided many to their doom. Will you follow its path, or forge your own?" Alex hesitated, glancing at Carter. They'd come so far, risked so much, all because of this book. But now, faced with the source of its power, doubt crept in. Was it truly worth it? "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But I need to understand. Why are those creatures hunting us? What did we unleash?" The being's glow dimmed slightly, as if saddened. "You have awakened echoes of my past, a failed experiment meant to harness my energy. These entities are remnants, bound neither to life nor death. They will stop at nothing to reclaim what was lost." "And how do we stop them?" Carter demanded. "There is only one way," the being replied. "Sever the connection. Destroy the artifact." Alex stared down at the guide, its worn cover suddenly feeling heavier than ever. Everything they'd endured, every clue they'd followed, it all led back to this moment. To destroy the guide would mean abandoning their quest, leaving countless questions unanswered. But to keep it might doom them, and countless others. "We have to do it," Alex said finally, clutching the guide tightly. "It's the only way." Carter nodded in agreement. Together, they placed the guide on an altar-like structure nearby, activating a sequence that caused the platform to tremble violently. The symbols around them flared brightly, and the being of light began to dissolve into the air. "Your choice honors the balance," it said before vanishing completely. "May you find peace beyond the stars." With a deafening roar, the ring began to collapse, its energy destabilizing as the guide disintegrated. Alex and Carter sprinted back to the iron wren, narrowly escaping as the platform crumbled beneath their feet. As they shot out of the ring, the entire structure imploded, leaving behind only silence. For the first time in weeks, the void felt quiet, empty, even peaceful. Exhausted but alive, Alex slumped into their seat, staring at the empty space where the guide had been. "What now?" Carter asked softly. Alex sighed. "Now, we go home." But deep down, they knew the journey had changed them forever. The answers they'd sought weren't the ones they'd expected, but perhaps understanding wasn't about finding certainty. It was about learning to live with the unknown. The iron wren limped away from the remnants of the ring, its systems battered but intact. Alex sat in silence, staring out at the void where the colossal structure had once stood. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. Destroying the guide had felt like severing a lifeline, cutting them off from the answers they'd chased for so long. Yet, as the adrenaline faded, a strange sense of relief washed over them. For the first time since leaving Nova Heights, they weren't running toward something, they were heading back. Carter broke the quiet with a weary chuckle. "Well, that was eventful." Alex managed a faint smile. "Understatement of the century. Think we'll ever really understand what happened back there?" Carter asked, his tone softer now. "Maybe," Alex replied thoughtfully. "But maybe understanding isn't the point. Sometimes it's enough just to survive." They both fell silent after that, each lost in their own thoughts. The ship drifted through the Elysium cluster, retracing their path outward. With every jump, the oppressive energy of the cluster seemed to fade, replaced by the familiar cold emptiness of deep space. It was almost comforting, a reminder of how vast and indifferent the universe truly was. As they traveled, Alex couldn't help but reflect on everything they'd seen: the derelict mining ship, Echo Station, the alien entities, and finally, the being of light within the ring. Each encounter had tested them in ways they never could have anticipated. They'd faced fear, doubt, and even temptation, but somehow, they'd made it through. Still, questions lingered. Had destroying the guide truly severed the connection? Would the entities stop pursuing them now? And what about the civilizations depicted in the holograms? What had become of them? You think those things are still out there? Alex asked eventually, breaking the silence. Carter glanced over his shoulder. Probably. But without the guide drawing them in, maybe they'll leave us alone. Or maybe not, Alex muttered under their breath. Despite the uncertainty, they pressed on. Along the way, Alex took stock of their surroundings, noticing subtle changes in the ship itself. The constant hum of the engine sounded different somehow, quieter, steadier, as if the vessel had absorbed some of the journey's chaos and come out stronger for it. Even Carter seemed more relaxed, his usual brash confidence tempered by the experiences they'd shared. One evening, as they passed through an asteroid field similar to the one near Orion Belt, Alex noticed something strange on the radar, a faint signal blinking intermittently. At first, they dismissed it as interference, but curiosity got the better of them. "Carter, take a look at this," Alex said, pointing to the console. Carter leaned in, frowning. "That's odd. Looks like a distress beacon. Should we check it out?" Alex asked hesitantly. After all they'd been through, investigating unknown signals felt risky. "It's probably nothing," Carter admitted. "But if someone's in trouble, we can't just ignore it." With a sigh, Alex nodded. "All right. Let's see what we're dealing with." They adjusted course, following the signal to its source, a small escape pod drifting aimlessly among the rocks. Its hull was scorched, and its power reserves were nearly depleted. Inside, curled up in a corner, was a young woman, unconscious but alive. "Who is she?" Alex wondered aloud as they carefully brought her aboard. Carter shrugged. "No idea. But she's lucky we found her." Once aboard, they tended to her injuries and set her up in one of the bunks. Hours later, she stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She introduced herself simply as Mira, though she offered little else about her past or how she'd ended up adrift in space. "I don't remember much," she admitted, her voice hoarse. "Just running from something." Alex and Carter exchanged uneasy glances. Running from what, or whom, remained unclear, but they didn't press her for details. Instead, they focused on keeping her safe and ensuring she recovered fully before deciding their next move. Over the days that followed, Mira proved resourceful, helping Alex repair minor damage to the ship and sharing fragments of knowledge about navigation techniques neither of them had encountered before. Her presence brought a new dynamic to the crew, though Alex couldn't shake the feeling that her arrival wasn't entirely coincidental. "We're taking her with us, aren't we?" Alex asked Carter one night while Mira slept. Carter nodded. "She doesn't have anywhere else to go. Besides, she might be useful." Useful, for what, exactly, neither of them knew. But as they continued their journey home, Alex began to suspect that their adventure wasn't truly over. Destroying the guide had closed one chapter, but the universe always found ways to write new ones. When they finally reached the outskirts of known space, the sight of distant stars twinkling like old friends filled Alex with a mix of emotions. Relief, yes, but also a pang of longing for the mysteries they'd left behind. Nova Heights loomed ahead, its neon lights glowing brighter than ever against the dark canvas of space. As the Iron Wren descended into the bustling spaceport, Alex felt a strange sense of closure. They'd started this journey as a mechanic dreaming of adventure, and returned as something more. Yet, as they disembarked and stepped onto solid ground for the first time in months, Alex couldn't help but glance back at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of maps and guides, lay secrets waiting to be uncovered. And perhaps, someday, they'd answer the call again. Nova Heights was exactly as Alex remembered it, chaotic, noisy, and alive with the hum of engines and the chatter of traders. Yet, stepping back into the familiar streets felt surreal after everything they'd experienced. The city seemed smaller somehow, its neon-lit skyline dwarfed by the infinite expanse they traversed. Carter wasted no time getting the iron wren repaired and resupplied, knowing full well that their journey wasn't entirely behind them. "We've still got a ship to maintain," he said with a grin, though there was a weariness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "And who knows? Maybe we'll need her again." Mira, meanwhile, kept mostly to herself, observing the bustling port with quiet curiosity. She had shared little about her past beyond vague mentions of fleeing danger, but Alex sensed she carried burdens heavier than any of them realized. Still, her presence brought an unexpected sense of balance to their makeshift crew, a reminder that even broken journeys could forge new beginnings. One evening, as the three sat together in a dimly lit cantina overlooking the spaceport, Carter raised a glass. "To survival," he declared, his voice carrying just enough irony to make Alex smirk. "And to whatever comes next." "To survival," Alex echoed, clinking their glass against his. Then, turning to Mira, they added softly, "and to finding our way." Mira smiled faintly, raising her own drink. "To finding answers." The sentiment hung in the air, unspoken yet understood. None of them truly believed their adventures were over, not after what they'd seen, not after what they'd survived. But for now, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, savoring the rare gift of stability. Over the following weeks, life settled into a rhythm. Alex returned to their garage, fixing ships for local pilots while secretly sketching designs for upgrades inspired by the technology they'd encountered in the Elysium cluster. Carter took odd jobs ferrying cargo across nearby systems, always keeping one eye on the stars as if expecting trouble to find them again. And Mira? She spent her days exploring the city, learning its rhythms and piecing together fragments of her memory. But the universe has a way of reminding you that nothing stays still forever. It happened late one night when Alex was alone in the garage, tinkering with an old engine. A shadow fell across the doorway, and they looked up to see Mira standing there, holding something small and metallic in her hand. "I found this," she said quietly, placing the object on the workbench. It was a shard of reflective material, its surface etched with faint symbols that pulsed faintly under the light. Alex froze, recognizing the pattern instantly. "Where did you get this?" "It was in my pocket," Mira admitted, her expression troubled. "I don't know how it got there, or why it feels familiar." A chill ran down Alex's spine. They reached out cautiously, brushing their fingers against the shard. Immediately, images flooded their mind, flashes of the alien ring, the light being, and the entities that had pursued them. But there was something new too, coordinates leading to a distant system untouched by human exploration. "What does it mean?" Mira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex hesitated, weighing their options. Destroying the guide had been the right choice, it had severed the connection to the entities, or so they thought. But this shard, it was different. Smaller, fragmented, yet undeniably tied to the same power. "It means," Alex said finally, meeting Myra's gaze, "that the story isn't over." Carter arrived moments later, drawn by the urgency in Alex's voice. When he saw the shard, his jaw tightened. "You think it's safe to follow this?" "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But we can't ignore it either. Whatever this is, it chose us, for better or worse." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The weight of the decision hung heavy between them, a reminder that every choice came with risks. Yet, as Alex glanced at the shard glowing faintly on the bench, they felt a spark of resolve ignite within them. This wasn't just about chasing answers anymore, it was about understanding their place in a universe far larger and more mysterious than they'd ever imagined. "All right," Carter said finally, breaking the silence. Let's gear up. If we're doing this, we do it smart. Mira nodded, her earlier uncertainty replaced by determination. I'm ready. As they prepared to leave Nova Heights once again, Alex couldn't help but feel a mix of trepidation and excitement. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers they couldn't predict. But they also knew one thing for certain: they weren't the same people who had left this city months ago. They were stronger, wiser, and bound together by experiences that transcended words. Standing on the threshold of the Iron Wren, Alex turned to look back at the city one last time. Somewhere deep inside, they knew they might never return. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the journey, the endless pursuit of knowledge, connection, and meaning in a cosmos teeming with both wonder and peril. With a final glance at the stars, Alex stepped aboard the ship, sealing the hatch behind them. The engines roared to life, and the Iron Wren lifted off, vanishing into the void. Their adventure was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning.